it was a lot of work, but night only comes after dawn's darkest hour, and I pushed through.
Hey everybody, it's Dr. Leah with another episode of And I Should Care Because, the podcast where we talk about higher ed policy changes and I help you navigate those changes one news article at a time. Now, I just said one news article at a time. Ain't no news article today. We are looking at some interview snippets of a conversation I had with a longtime friend, Thomas Bertarelli. We met in college and we stayed in touch for all these years. He has a very interesting academic journey that I think will be helpful for you guys to hear about, to know that even if you do something that's off the traditional beaten path of what you quote unquote should do when you're in school, that it doesn't mean that there isn't success on the other side. Everyone needs to go through their journey. And so today we're going to talk about, you're going to watch part of an interview where he talks about his transition from a master's program to a PhD program and what the differences were, and just kind of how he navigated those changes. And it'll hopefully give you some more insight as to the difference between a master's program and a PhD program, and also help give you some food for thought if you're considering graduate school, what it's really like. So I have a PhD, but it's in biochemistry. And so there are certain aspects that I don't have experience with. But he's in social sciences and sociology. And he did undergrad as STEM. So he's got the contrast thing going, and his experience I think highlights more of the master's experience because I didn't do a master's. So it'll give you some more perspective on what it looks like, what it feels like, and things to consider. There are a lot of life decisions that are linked to continuing your education. So you have permission to think about your needs outside of the degree. Thinking about work life balance, family life, friends, being close to home, all the things that you may value. You can consider those things while you consider tongue twister, y'all. You can think about those things while you consider, you know, continuing your education and whether or not it's the right step for you. So hopefully this interview snippet will be helpful in your decision making process, and let me know. I'll see you back here after the snippet.
So I was applying to medical school, which ended up not happening. But I also ended up applying to some PhD programs, which also did not happen. I did not get accepted into a PhD program right off the bat. I first actually had to go and do a master's degree in the social sciences. And I realized that was perhaps a little bit of a pragmatic move because, right, I graduated undergrad with 4 sociology classes under my belt, and I was trying to tell a PhD program, listen, I got what it takes, and they were like, probably not. So I didn't get accepted. Right? I was crushed. Of course, I really wanted to pursue this new route, but I realized that I needed to prove myself a little bit. Also, take some more classes to figure out what exactly is this thing that I want to be pursuing. This sociology. What does it actually mean? So, after that year gap, I did an accelerated master's program in the social sciences, which really gave me the coursework. It gave me a better understanding for what sociology is, and with that degree under my belt, I was then able to pivot and eventually land into a PhD program. So a lot of back and forth, and that year was, you remember what that was like.
Oh, I remember. I don't even understand how you had time to entertain me and to come visit, because the
Mhm.
quarter system, it was
Yes.
just like, am I allowed to breathe? Is eating
Um,
allowed?
no. So truth. So this is 100% truth. From in the last 2 quarters of my program, I don't have distinct memories, but if you told me a day of the week and a time of day, I could tell you what I was doing. Not because I remember that moment, but just because I had to structure my life so strictly in order to get my work done in time. So it was a lot of work, but night only comes after dawn's darkest hour, and I pushed through.
Yeah, I remember you were disappeared when you were trying to finish your thesis. You were just like, I'm alive. Don't talk to me.
Yep.
So I remember that
We're going
time.
to sit here and we're going to look at each other and we're going to smize at each other, but that's it.
Yes. So that I know
Mhm.
that was really tough, but it sounds like it was worth it. Even though the schedule was grueling, it kind of gave you the confidence to know that, okay, I think I can reapply for these PhD programs
Mhm.
and I'm still a good fit. It's not like I found this new fad at the end of undergrad
Mhm.
and then I tried to chase it and it said, nah, fam.
Mhm. Mhm.
But this is real. It's something you're
Yep.
interested in. And you kind of showed yourself, I have what it takes. So then
Yeah.
you could actually show that in your application. So that's
Mhm.
really cool. Um, so from there, you made the leap to PhD land.
I do.
How was that? Where'd you go? What did it feel like when you made that transition? All the things about when you started your PhD program.
Sure. So it was a sense of it was a sense of relief, but also a lot of expectation as well. So I pivoted after undergrad. I did a master's degree, and I landed into a program that I wanted to go to. That I linked I linked very closely with the professors there. Our interests overlapped, so I saw a place to really grow as an aspiring academic. Um, there definitely was a little trepidation as well because a PhD program is no joke. It
Child.
is it is training that you need to take seriously if you want to get the most out of it. So I got really grateful, really happy to have landed there, but like it was the beginning of another section of the road, right? Getting into that program was not the final chapter, right? It was kind
Mm-hmm.
of that next thing that next mountain I needed to climb. Um, so yeah, it was a mixture of just happiness, but also you know, admittedly at that point I was also starting to, I guess the seed maybe of doubt in that regard started getting planted as well because I had bounced around a lot. So undergrad in Pennsylvania, then I stayed in Pennsylvania. Then for my master's, I went to Chicago. In between there, I went to Europe, and then
I
I
forgot
had to
about
go.
that.
That's right. Yeah. So I did that for in between my master's and my PhD. So I was teaching. I wasn't just kind of gallivanting around. I
Yeah,
was
sure.
doing
Okay.
work. but and then so I had to. So I applied to schools, which are really all over the country, and I had to relocate myself to wherever the school was. Right. I couldn't select a location based on where my family was or my friends. Like I had to go where the department was. Um, so that was like kind of like a precursor of like what academia is like, right? You go where the position is, the postdoc is, the job is. You don't really get a lot of say in that. So that was kind of like that was the one planted seed of like, oh wait a minute, this is what it's going to be like. But I was very fortunate. I moved to Boston, Brandeis University. Again, really great fit. So it was really great time there. And no regrets for making that decision. I'm sorry. What was the question?
Well, yeah, you gave it to me. So all about like the transition from master's
Mm,
to PhD and kind of what were you feeling, what were you thinking? And I really like what you mentioned about how once you get accepted to the PhD program, it's not like, all right, we did it. We're getting a diploma tomorrow. No.
yeah, no, it's not that.
Then you start again with all the work. So
Yeah.
I didn't do a master's program. My program was a PhD program. And that's pretty common in STEM that you don't earn a master's degree, that you just chug right through. A lot of people are getting rid of the master's along the way because people are using it to get a free master's. So they're like,
Mm,
nah, you're going to pay us anyway.
sure.
So just really briefly, what was the difference transitioning from the undergrad and the master's program where it's coursework and due dates to a PhD program where I'm sure you probably maybe had to take more classes, but there was more research and thinking and kind of
Yep.
self-motivated work. What was that
Mhm.
transition like?
It was definitely eye-opening because you don't really I didn't anticipate it, or at the very least, I'm the kind of a person that I learn by doing something. So maybe somebody along the way had explained to me what the difference was between these two levels, but like it didn't hit me until I was actually doing it. At each stage, undergrad, master's degree, PhD, like all of those being in that program and then trying to transition to that next level, each require a different skill set that you have to master before you get to that next level, and then you have that next skill set you need to master in order to get to that next level. I think you alluded that, talking about the difference between the master's and the PhD. So my master's degree was accelerated, so I needed to take coursework, and I also needed to do a master's thesis at the same time. So not only was I trying to kind of like prove myself by like learning different theories, different perspectives, in order to prove to my advisors that I had what it takes to be a master's degree, I also had to create knowledge, right? So it wasn't just kind of stomaching and swallowing information and then spitting it out. I actually had to come up with something new. So I had to figure out, right, how do you, in the process of learning something, translate that into something that is new to the literature, new to, the field that you're interested in studying. So that was a crash course in my master's degree. And then transitioning to my PhD was actually, I could sit back a little bit because it wasn't an accelerated program. And it was expected that I would use the first couple of years really just to be a sponge and really learn the practice of my discipline. So I was really fortunate in that regard. But to your point, it was also a little bit less about kind of learning and regurgitating. It was more about situating yourself in your discipline. So learning, the the end result is not just going to be a paper where you just say some citations about papers that were in your syllabus. You actually had to do new things with these things, with these citations, the papers that you're reading, come up with a new thought, a new idea, and run with it. So it's a lot more creative. But with that creative freedom does come the expectation that you'll be pulling your weight. So you need to, you need to prove yourself really time and again with every term paper, because no longer are you just this student that's sitting in front of a faculty member. Increasingly, you're becoming the peer of your faculty member because you're working towards the degree that they have, right? They have a PhD, you're working towards that PhD. You're more closer and closer to becoming more of like a colleague rather than kind of having that power differential. So you have to prove yourself along the way, and that definitely takes a different kind of a skill set.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I felt that way in graduate school too, so I feel like the crossover for me was after preliminary exams. It's like the first couple of
Mm-hmm.
years, you're still a student and it's like, oh,
Yep.
almighty professor. But then you get through prelims and you realize I know a lot
Yeah.
and I can take all of this information and answer questions that I've literally never heard before. And I can reason through things that a year ago I wouldn't have even understood the question.
Yeah.
So you're becoming this intellectual being that you didn't even know existed inside of you. And I think that's a really cool process. So thanks for
Yeah.
bringing that out. Thank you so much for joining me again today. I hope that the conversation that you just saw was helpful. If you're thinking about what is a master's versus a PhD, what it feels like, what the transition is like, and just to know that your journey is your journey. So the path that you take to get there is yours. And it doesn't have to be what everyone else says it should be, but it should be unique to you and cater to your needs, that it should give you everything that you need to be whole. Don't make sacrifices that you can't live with, sacrifices that you regret moving forward. Graduate school is great. It can be an amazing experience, but it can only be those things if it actually gives you what you need. So be prepared, do your research, and do some soul searching. I know we don't really talk about that, but and maybe in career counseling, it may not be something that is really enforced, but you need to be okay with the choices that you make in education and in all parts of your life, making sure that they all go together, that you aren't leaving one part of your mental or emotional or physical health out of the equation. Graduate school is a big, big, big step in terms of effort and time spent. So you want to make sure it's for you. It's for a lot of people, but it may not be for you right after undergrad. It may be for you after you've worked for a little while and realize what you really want to do. So give yourself permission to do something untraditional. Thanks again for joining me. Come on back soon and watch the rest of these interview snippets. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts, leave your questions. Hit me up on Twitter, all the things. And I'll see you soon. Make it a great day.